Hello, everyone on Patreon. Thank you so much for your ongoing support and for voting this month on a bonus movie review. Before I get into the winner, as you can tell, you can't see me, you could only hear me. I'm actually currently moving this weekend, so my apartment has a lot of stuff boxed up, and it's a little difficult to record video, but it's pretty easy to do an audio. So this will be like a video essay, so to speak, and I'll be able to cut images throughout the video, similar to what I did in the video format. But here it is. So this month, the winner is Cat People from 1942. This being October, I wanted to do some horror. This was released, as I said, in 1942. It was directed by Jacques Tourneur. It was written by DeWitt Bodeen, and it starred Simone Simon, Tom Conway, Ken Smith, and Jane Randolph. For those of you who haven't seen it before, or if you haven't seen it in a while, the plot is an American man marries a Serbian immigrant who fears that she will turn into the cat person of her homeland's fables if they are intimate together. Okay, so I had been meaning to see this for quite a while. People had, been talking about it and telling me, "Oh, you should see that." And I'd heard about it, and there was certain moments of it, like when the one young woman is hiding in the pool from the cat. That was Jane Randolph, Alice Moore. I had seen that scene, which is really, really well known. And so I watched it recently, and I quite liked it. I mean, I don't think it was a great film, but what's really innovative about it, it was, they made this horror film with basically no special effects or anything like that. It's done purely with shadow and light. And the director went on to do Out of the Past. It's also the same cinematographer on this film as Out of the Past. And so it looks like film noir because so much of it is, the use of shadow and light, very dark photography. And that's what's scary, is that what they don't show you is what's scary, as opposed to what you see, which is very common, particularly today with slasher films. Obviously, this is, at a time when you couldn't show graphic violence on screen. And so they had to figure out innovative ways to make things scary. And it is certainly eerie. And it's such an unusual story because I kept thinking, well, maybe this whole thing about the woman who, believes that that she's going to turn into a cat because of these fables from in her homeland, that these, there were like these demon types who were, cast away and run out of the country, but some of them escaped, and she fears that she is one of these, demon cat people that can turn into a cat, and do great harm. And so I kept thinking, okay, is there an essence to this? What is this about? And really, I don't think it's any kind of a metaphor. I think you could look at it in all kinds of different ways. I mean, on the one hand, she's sort of mentally disturbed. So perhaps, I don't think consciously they were thinking, oh, mental health. I think they were just thinking, let's tell a scary story. That's just my impression. But I can't help but, wonder if, modern audiences today, because people are more informed about mental health, would perhaps see something like that in it. Because the character Irina, played by Simone Simon, she clearly has mental health issues, and so she falls in love with Tom Conway's character, Dr. Lewis Judd, and she is afraid to kiss him. She's convinced that once they kiss, she will turn into a cat, and this is very peculiar. And he is so drawn to her, and he doesn't know why he's so drawn to her, but he just falls hard for her. And then we have this love triangle with his friend Alice Moore, played by Jane Randolph. And, Irina begins to see that there's an attraction between the two of them once they get married. And so, of course, this is when that great scene on the sidewalks where she's stalking her. And then she gets on a bus and she's convinced she saw a big, large cat. It's also interesting because Irina keeps going to the zoo to look at this panther. And so, and has this key to open the cage to let the panther out, right? And it's almost like she's just possessed in a way to, it's sort of like a metaphor, a visual metaphor. I mean, I suppose that there is a metaphor here, and and the metaphor is to open that cage and let the cat out. Like it's this force pushing the cat out of herself, just like the panther is stuck in the cage unless someone opens the unlocks it. And of course, spoiler alert, at the end, once she does unlock it, the panther kills her. And so I suppose that's the tragedy, is that, this person is just doomed because she can turn into a panther and she's possessed, and there's nothing to save her. There's just no way to save her. So it's sad in that sense. But you do see, again, scenes where she's seeing an analyst, and so it certainly is psychological. But I can't help but wonder, were they thinking, that this is a metaphor for people with mental health issues? I don't know, but I can certainly see how now it's always interesting. A film, even though this is from the 1940s, 42, so 81 years ago, it's always interesting that a film can be looked at in a different way and hold up, not because it's necessarily universal, but in this case, because we look at mental health as something very serious, whereas back then it was not taken as seriously. And even now, there are taboos and certain things about mental health that people dismiss. But again, I thought that was quite interesting. And a scene that I really like is when they're at a restaurant, everyone after the wedding, and this woman who's dressed very much like a cat says hello to her in Serbian, and she's, she greets her and she says, "My sister," right? So it's really interesting. Again, it's almost like she was touched by the devil, or something along those lines, and there's just no way out for her. And that's really the tragedy. I mean, it's just a really bleak, tragic horror film. And it's sad, but I enjoyed it. I was glad it's, again, this was a big hit, bigger than right after Citizen Kane came out. And this wound up making way more money than Citizen Kane did. So it's interesting that this low budget film did so well at the box office, and the performances are quite good, really really subtle and quiet, and has a certain intensity that I quite liked. And again, the seeds of film noir you were certainly seeing. It's no surprise that neo-noir, that period was, has utilized horror and noir together. And in a way, this is like a precursor for all of that, because it's both noir and before the classic film noir period, because in a way she's the doomed protagonist, right? And she's doomed from the beginning and she's doomed at the end. So it's interesting to also see those kinds of shades in it as well. But I'm glad I saw it. So if you've seen the film, comment below. Let me know what you think of it. Thank you so much for voting, and I will see you all in the next episode.